Hello, and welcome to Homeowner Talk. My name is David Stone, and I'm the president of Nevada Association Services. And this is my co-host, John Leach, who's a partner in the law firm of Leach, Johnson, Song, and Gruco. Each episode, we'll be here to talk with you about important homeowner topics. Whether they involve homeowner association issues or homeowner maintenance problems, we, along with our guests, are here to provide you with useful information on these subjects.
We also want to encourage you to interact with us and our guests each episode. So please visit our website at homeownertalktv.com and send us your questions. We will try to answer as many of your questions as we can on the air and online. On this show, we're going to be talking about landscape issues for Homeowners Association with Jay Stoss. Jay is the co-owner of Classic Landscape LLC.
Hi,
Jay,
how you doing?
thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and your company?
Okay, like I said, my name is Jay Stoss. I've been in Las Vegas for about 12 years now. All 12 years I've been in the landscape industry. I've held positions from laborer, foreman, supervisor, salesperson. I ended up managing a large landscape company here for a while, and then about 6 years ago, my partner and I, Alex Zari, decided to open up Classic Landscapes, and we're moving on into our 7th year, and it's been going great. We actually started with 0 trucks and 0 employees, and now have over 120 accounts, and 80% of those are community associations. So that goes very well, and that we know a lot about homeowners associations and the problems they deal with. And also, I am a certified arborist, and I'm currently teaching a Landscape 101 class for the state of Nevada for their continuing education program.
It sounds like we have the right guy on the show.
This is the guy. I'm going to be taking notes for my own house on this one.
Right.
And Jay, for a myriad of reasons, we know that landscaping is a big issue. We live in a desert, plus we've had an economic downturn. We've seen a lot of things going on out there that have affected landscaping. Maybe you can tell us what your observations are and maybe the biggest problems you're seeing in common interest communities on the subject of landscaping.
There's, like you said, there's a bunch of different issues. The big one that we're working on right now is basically getting enough water to our plants and to our trees that are on a lot of our communities. Basically, when these communities were developed, originally these plants and trees were installed with a drip system, which is where you actually have the emitter, the emitters around the trees and bushes, and they water those trees and bushes. Well, the problem is they were installed correctly. However, over time, these trees and these plants want to grow, so their root systems are now growing out laterally, trying to grow. Well, now the problem is these emitters are in the wrong location. They're actually located between the trunk of the plant or the tree and the root system, at the edge of the root system, which is what's called the drip line. So what we need to do is actually move those emitters out to the edge of the drip line. And basically, if a plant or tree needs more water, because there's different varieties of plants and trees, there's desert varieties and there's more traditional varieties that need a lot more water, then you have to make that determination, do you need to add more emitters as well? So we're trying to ask our communities to be more proactive, put together a program to say, you know what, let's invest some money to get irrigation out to the right areas for these plants and these trees.
You mentioned a little bit about getting enough water there, and we go through periods of time where, the water district determines how often you can water. We go through the winter and maybe early spring months when we don't water things as much and we see a different color.
Most of it's yellow.
It isn't necessarily attractive. So,
yeah. Well,
why is that?
Well,
actually, what is it with, it seems like grass in some of these communities, mine too. My lawn, in fact, it seems to be a unusual shade of yellow and not really green. What's going on?
Well, basically the grass we use here in the valley is called fescue grass, and that's the standard grass that we use all throughout Las Vegas. It stays green year-round if it's fertilized properly.
And we've got a little video clip here. Is this?
That's a type of fescue grass right there being mowed, and that's correct, that's fescue. And basically what happens is there's a different type of grass called Bermuda grass as well, and what Bermuda grass does is it actually goes dormant during the winter. And what that means by going dormant is basically hibernates and it just goes yellow. So what you might get sometimes, what you see is you'll actually see Bermuda infesting itself into the fescue. So you'll actually have green with yellow at the same time. Also, if you don't fertilize your fescue grass in time before the winter, you will get some dormancy as well. So that's kind of what you're seeing during the winter and cooler months.
What do you do as far as weeds go? You see weeds in a lot of the turf areas. What can associations do to be proactive with respect to that?
Unfortunately, the weed problem, like we just said with the fescue grass, it is a great grass. It's green year round, but however, it is very delicate. So when the grass dies back anyway, so say if you have a valve problem during the summer and you have a lack of water, that grass dies back. And like you can see here in this video, and you get a lot of weeds that come back in because you can't just water fescue grass and have it come right back up. It just doesn't work. So basically what happens is you get these weeds in those turf areas. Really, you can't do much except for try to minimize the damage. And how you do that is you get what's called a weed and feed. It's a fertilizer with an herbicide in it too, and you apply that in the cool months in the fall and the spring. And what that does, that helps minimize the weeds, but it doesn't eradicate them completely. If you actually want to get rid of them completely, the best thing to do is really sod cut and remove that grass, and either replace it with fresh sod or go ahead and go with the turf conversion.
All I know is I grow weeds really well. I am good. So I've got to get this other part working. Now, let's talk a little bit more about trees, because I know that's one of your areas of specialty, being an arborist. And different associations have taught, I've even heard the term selective pruning. You know, when do you prune, when you know when to prune the trees, and if you don't do it at the right time, it can kill the tree. Could you give our viewers some information on this concept of selective pruning and the difference between it, maybe hedge trimming, those types of things?
Well, what we're looking at there is actually bushes, not the trees. And that's a common misconception, because what selective pruning is an actual way to go in and selectively prune the bushes using your hand pruners. Whereas if you hedge trim, you're actually using a hedge trimmer and you're actually rounding or balling those bushes.
And again, here's another video you were kind enough to put
Correct.
together for us. And what's happening here?
So this gentleman right here is actually hedge trimming this bush. That's a pittosporum or mock orange. So he's using his hedge trimmer to trim. Now that's the more economical, I don't want to say cheap, but it's a much more less expensive way for landscapes to be maintained. So a lot of associations use that. Plus a lot of homeowners expect that to happen, and that's what they're looking for. Now the proper way to actually selectively prune a bush is to go in using your hand pruners and actually go into the bush and selectively prune each branch down to the crotch, which is the right way to do it, the crotch of the stem. And what that does, that gives you more of, see, like right here in this example, this gentleman is actually hand pruning and selectively pruning the bush. And what that does is it actually provides you more of a natural, fluffy appearance to the bush instead of a hardcore round trim.
And how many times a year, I'm sorry, how many times a year do you need to do prune the trees?
Well, with your hedge trimming, you actually can probably, depending on the variety of the shrub, because they all grow differently, you can prune probably 3 or 4 times a year. With selective pruning, you just want to pinch back that growth for about 6 or 7 months out of the year, and then during the winter is actually when you want to get in there and start to selectively prune.
And that's for palm trees as well. I think
no, palm trees are different.
And I think we have a video of palm trees.
Yeah, actually, no, palm trees, basically what happens with palm trees is a lot of people think that they have to prune those more than once a year. And basically what we feel is that pruning palm trees more than once a year is not needed. The reason being is that a palm tree's growth period is between March and middle of June. Right, and this is an example of a Mexican fan palm right here. And these palm trees, what happens, they have a heart inside the palm tree that's growing up through the center of the palm. So as it grows up, new growth comes out the top, pushes the fronds down on the bottom lower, and creates like a skirt of dead fronds. And so what happens is a lot of residents see this going on like right around April, beginning of May, and they say it's time to prune the palm trees. Okay. So a community might actually come in, spend like, say, $1,000 to prune those. But then what happens is that palm tree is still growing for another 8 to 10 weeks. So what happens is once they prune them, again, more growth comes out, more seeds, more dead fronds. Next thing you know, you have to pay the money again in the middle of June to prune them.
Real quickly, association, they want to hire a new landscaper, and you know, what's like the number one question you would ask?
Well, of course, you want to look at their references. You're going to want to look at their experience, but the big one is, are they a landscape contractor? And there's a huge difference when it comes to that. Because if you're
landscape contractor is very important.
Very important.
Well, Jay, thank you very much for joining us today in Homeowner Talk. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Alex Zari, a certified irrigation auditor and co-owner of Classic Landscapes, LLC. He'll tell us about the latest trends in landscaping. We'll be right back.